Look at your screen right now. Look closely at the subtle, invisible pressure pressing against the back of your skull. Every single morning, tens of thousands of algorithms wake up with one explicit, mathematically optimized objective: to convince you that you are fundamentally insufficient. You are told to wake up at 4 in the morning. You are told to stack 6 figures before you turn 25. You are told to build an empire, chase a six-pack, dominate your market, and monetize every single second of your breathing existence. Every hobby must become a side hustle. Every relationship must become a strategic network. Every quiet moment must be filled with productivity podcasts, market charts, or self-optimization guides. And if you dare to slow down, if you dare to catch your breath, a voice in the digital noise whispers the ultimate modern insult: you are falling behind. You are lazy. You are a failure. We have been weaponized against ourselves. Modern culture has constructed a high-tech psychological slaughterhouse built on the premise that human worth is calculated purely by output, status, and material extraction. You are no longer viewed as a living, breathing soul with intrinsic dignity. You are an asset, a biological unit, a line on a balance sheet, a heat map on an advertiser's dashboard. And to keep this colossal economic machine running, the system must perform a violent piece of psychological surgery. It must destroy your ability to feel content. Think about the math behind this. A person who is content cannot be easily manipulated. A person who looks around their quiet room, takes a deep breath and says, "I have enough," is a terrible customer. They don't buy the luxury watch to validate their fragile identity. They don't scroll frantically at 2 in the morning looking for a shortcut to crypto wealth. They don't sacrifice their sanity, their family, and their health on the altar of perpetual economic growth. And so, contentment was outlawed. It was rebranded as apathy. Gratitude was mocked as passive weakness. And greed, endless, agonizing, insatiable greed, was crowned as the ultimate modern virtue. They called it hustle culture. They called it the grindset. In reality, it is a terminal psychological trap, an ancient human sickness that has been modernized, digitized, and fed back to us through glowing glass rectangles until our nervous systems collapse under the friction. But this disease didn't begin with social media. The algorithm didn't invent this horror. It merely perfected it. To understand how deep this trap goes and where it inevitably leads, we have to look back over 2,000 years to a man who possessed all the gold in the ancient world and discovered that even an ocean of wealth cannot drown a starving soul. The year is 53 before Christ, the scorching, dust-choked plains of Carrhae, in what is now modern-day Turkey. A 62-year-old man stands in the blinding heat, watching 7 elite Roman legions, over 40,000 men, get systematically torn to shreds by Parthian horse archers. His name is Marcus Licinius Crassus. Crassus was not merely wealthy. He was the richest man in the entire history of Rome, and arguably one of the wealthiest human beings to ever walk the earth. His fortune was staggering, worth billions in modern dollars. He owned entire districts of Rome. He operated private fire brigades that would race to a burning building, stand outside with water buckets, and refuse to put out the flames until the terrified owner sold the property to Crassus for pennies on the dollar. He controlled senators, financed armies, and held the economic destiny of the Roman Republic in his bare hands. By any rational human measurement, Crassus had won the game. He had reached the absolute apex of material existence. He possessed enough gold to buy nations, feed cities, and secure his lineage for 1,000 generations. And yet, he lived and died in a state of quiet, rotting agony. Because across the Roman horizon stood 2 other men, Julius Caesar and Pompey the Great. Caesar had military genius. Pompey had public adoration and legendary martial glory. And no matter how many thousands of pounds of gold Crassus accumulated in his subterranean vaults, his mind refused to settle. His massive fortune felt weightless compared to the military triumphs of his rivals. The sickness in his brain whispered the exact same dark lie that haunts your social media feeds today. It is not enough. You are still inferior. You need more. Driven by this phantom void, Crassus, a man in his 60s who should have been enjoying the peaceful twilight of his life, demanded a military command against the formidable Parthian Empire. He did not march east for the security of Rome. He marched east because his ego was starving in the middle of a palace. The Battle of Carrhae was an absolute, merciless slaughter. The Parthian cavalry surrounded the Roman heavy infantry in the desert, raining down thousands of armor-piercing arrows for hours. Crassus watched his own son get decapitated, his head raised on a Parthian spear, and when Crassus was finally dragged before the enemy general, defeated and broken, the Parthian commanders looked upon this titan of Roman wealth and devised a punishment that would echo through history. According to ancient historians, they brought out a crucible of glowing molten gold. They bound the richest man in Rome to the sand, forced his jaws open with iron clamps, and poured the liquid fire directly down his throat. A golden death for an insatiable life. Marcus Licinius Crassus died with liquid metal scalding his internal organs. He spent his entire existence terrified of having less, terrified of being outshone, only to prove a timeless psychological law. When greed is your master, no amount of consumption will ever fill the void inside you. You will simply burn from the inside out. What happened to Marcus Licinius Crassus on those desert sands is not an ancient historical anomaly. It is the default operating system of the human brain when left uncalibrated. Modern neuroscience calls this mechanism the hedonic treadmill. Your brain was never evolutionary engineered for perpetual peace or passive bliss. It was engineered for raw survival, resource hoarding, and dopamine-driven pursuit. When you achieve a long-sought objective, whether it is a career promotion, a higher net worth, or a luxury vehicle, your brain releases a temporary surge of dopamine. And then within weeks, or sometimes even hours, your neurological baseline resets. The peak becomes the new floor. The luxury becomes the baseline expectation. What once felt like a life-changing victory becomes nothing more than the bare minimum. Greed is like drinking salt water when you are stranded on a life raft in the middle of the ocean. You are dying of thirst. Your body screams for hydration, so you scoop up a handful of ocean water and drink. For one fleeting second, the cold liquid wets your throat, but the immense sodium concentration immediately pulls essential water out of your cellular tissue. You become exponentially more dehydrated than you were before you swallowed a drop. So you drink again, more frantically this time, and again, until your organs shut down and your brain succumbs to delirium. Look at how modern hustle culture ruthlessly exploits this saltwater mechanism. The system promises you that once you hit 6 figures, you will finally feel safe. You hit 6 figures, and instantly the algorithm bombards you with videos of 22-year-olds making 7. You reach 7 figures, and now you are told that if you don't own a private jet or a real estate portfolio, you are still a peasant. The finish line isn't just moved, it is deliberately, systematically erased. And here's the systemic horror at the core of modern society. To keep this artificial machine turning, modern culture treats living human beings like industrial hardware. Consider a high-precision mechanical engine forged from hardened steel. If you run that engine at maximum RPMs day after day, without stopping for oil changes, without thermal cooling cycles, without rest, what happens? The continuous friction generates destructive thermal energy. The metal expands, warps, microfractures, and eventually welds itself into a useless, molten block of scrap metal. Friction destroys steel. And continuous psychological friction without rest destroys human biology just as ruthlessly. Yet, modern hustle culture looks at a burning, exhausted human being trembling with chronic anxiety, reliant on stimulants to wake up and sedatives to sleep, and whispers, "Good. That means you're grinding. Keep going." It is a form of collective, normalized psychological mutilation. We have been brainwashed into believing that laying down our burdens, even for a single evening, is a sin against our human potential. We are being converted into biological robots, burning our nervous systems as fuel to power an economic engine that does not know our names, does not care about our peace, and will replace us 24 hours after we drop dead. Whenever you challenge this toxic paradigm, the defenders of the system respond with the exact same brainwashed script. If everyone is grateful for what they have, society will collapse. Gratitude breeds weakness. Gratitude destroys ambition. Contentment is for lazy losers who gave up on life. Let us dismantle this lie with cold, surgical logic. There is a vast, fundamental difference between ambition born of desperation and ambition born of sufficiency. An ambition born of desperation comes from a psychological deficit. It whispers, I am worthless right now, but if I acquire X, if I buy Y, if I achieve Z, I will finally become worthy of respect. This is the ambition of a slave. It makes you hyper-reactive, chronically anxious, easily panicked, and infinitely vulnerable to predatory gurus, abusive employers, and manipulative systems. When you operate from deficit, every setback feels like an existential crisis because your entire self-worth is hanging by a single fragile thread. Now look at ambition born of sufficiency. Ambition grounded in genuine gratitude. When you practice true gratitude, you establish a baseline of unshakable psychological immunity. You look at your current life, your functioning body, your breathing lungs, the roof over your head, the quiet stability of your mind, and you declare, my core value as a human being is already secure. I am already whole. From that position of internal strength, your pursuit of goals completely changes nature. You no longer work out of fear of social irrelevance or financial starvation. You work out of mastery. You work out of curiosity. You work out of deep creative passion. You build not because you are terrified of being a nobody, but because you have an abundance of energy and focus to give to the world. The hustle system needs you operating from desperation, because a desperate man is easy to monetize. A desperate man will buy useless courses, work 16-hour days for companies that view him as disposable, and sacrifice his relationships for an impressive job title. A man grounded in sufficiency is unshakable. He cannot be intimidated. He cannot be bought with cheap status symbols. He cannot be manipulated by artificial urgency. He works with calm, terrifying efficiency because his nervous system is not trapped in a permanent state of fight or flight. Gratitude is not laziness. Gratitude is the ultimate tactical shield for your mind. It is the heavy armor that prevents the noise of a sickness-driven world from penetrating your core. We live in an economic system that directly profits off your permanent internal dissatisfaction. Multi-billion-dollar industries exist for the sole purpose of making you look in the mirror every morning and dislike what you see. They want you to hate your body, hate your bank account, hate your old car, and despise your quiet, simple life. Because as long as you hate where you are, you will keep paying them to sell you a temporary cure. In a world engineered like this, choosing contentment is not a passive choice. It is an act of radical psychological warfare. To look at a hyper-materialistic, outrage-driven transactional world and say, I do not need your status symbols. I do not care about your artificial hierarchies. I have enough, and I am enough. That is the ultimate sabotage of the apparatus. Take a step back from the digital noise. Disconnect from the artificial racing track that was built specifically to break your spirit and harvest your output. Remember that you are not placed on this earth simply to pay bills, track vanity metrics, build somebody else's empire, and collapse into an early grave. Your worth as a human being is intrinsic. It was encoded into you the exact moment you took your first breath. It is non-negotiable, and no market, no employer, no algorithm, and no social media metric has the authority to put a price tag on it. Rest when your body demands rest. Protect your mental peace as if it were a priceless treasure, because in the modern world, it is. Build your future not out of panic or greed, but out of quiet self-respect and genuine purpose. Marcus Licinius Crassus died in the desert sand, choking on molten gold, chasing a feeling of more that never existed. You do not have to follow him into that grave. Break the cycle. Refuse to be a biological robot. Reclaim your mind before the system claims the rest of your life. The choice is yours.